Hello, everyone. This is Vicky Crystalline and Mr. Edward, beautiful soul. Um, we've just been chatting a bit. I can feel my guides coming forward now. But there's something I want to talk about, that an experience that I had that I've been actually going into. It was on Saturday night. I was laying on the ground and I was just looking at the moon, and I was on medicine. And when I was looking at the moon, a craft came above me, and it beamed down a rainbow portal. Now that's happened to me before, but there's always been a beam that's come down the other end. So I knew that it wanted me to go, and so I just allowed it to happen. So when I got on this spacecraft, I call them shifters, for you guys to understand. When I was on there, actually, who came forward was Notre Dame, and he was saying that he was in real time. Now, I want you to feel this. He said that on the west, there's a big wave of energy that is coming forward. Now, at that time of that, I understood it, but as I got out of the experience, I had been really feeling into what that wave was, and that's a shift of, and I feel like it's a watery energy that is shifting, and I feel it happened over this weekend, and it's continuing. And Notre Dame did say to prepare. I never felt fear or anything. I just felt to just realize that he's saying this, And so when I was feeling into what does that mean to prepare? And when I went into my body, what that meant for my body was to allow what's coming forward in my body frame. So I asked for my energetic, and it just came out of nowhere, for my energetic system just to connect to this watery wave of energy and it's so weird how he said from the west, and whatever that means.
Well, it makes sense. The sea is on your west, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
So there's a big body of energy it would probably use. I mean,
Right.
like a physical wave, but I'm sort of seeing an energetic wave that will wash over. Interesting. I went for a long walk along the rivers today as well, and I felt the water's super good at the moment to clear a lot of this emotions.
That's what's so beautiful when I talk with like Edward or beings, that you can tap off of each other and get a clear understanding, because I can feel Edward's words, because in a way I was trying to figure it out, because I don't want to bring forward fear, and I never felt fear from any of this. But if you said that, big waves coming in from the west, I did explain it to one, and she went into fear. That's what made me pull back what was taking place. And we are preparing our bodies. I feel that there's these shifts are different each time we go through, and I feel like a quantum shift. There's a difference in it. You could feel it. Not that I want to pinpoint or make it humanized, but each shift is taking us and moving us, I feel, into another part of us.
And I feel on the preparation, the way I'd interpret that is you don't necessarily want to have lots of plans to be running around, because especially when a lot of energy comes in, we can only receive what we can receive, and you receive less if you're running around.
Yes.
And that might mean different things to different people. Maybe for someone it's like, fast a few days before, but maybe that's not for everyone. Maybe it's like, actually you want to be really grounded, so actually you want to just eat, but like grounding foods. maybe like very local foods that connect you to the land. I think drinking water is just so powerful at the moment.
So powerful.
And bringing the awareness to the drinking of water. I've been watering my plants just before we got on, and it's like even that I find such a cleansing process at the moment, because pouring the water into the vessel and then pour it onto the plants. It's like, oh, feels great. It doesn't even need to have to be in my body. It's just connecting to that water. And as I said, I went for a really nice walk along the rivers today. 2 rivers. I sort of walked, did almost a circle, and there were some beautiful swans actually. And there's a lovely. I just came under this railway bridge. There's an apple tree, and I picked a couple of the apples off the ground, and it's just almost like this voice popped into my head, like, oh, one good apple off the ground is the value of 2 on the tree. And I thought about that, and I was like, oh yeah, that makes so much sense. Because if you pick one off the ground that you would have taken off the tree, then there's 2 additional apples, because you've got the one from the floor, but you still have the one that you would have taken off the tree on the tree. And that really sort of just showed me, and this is interesting, it's near the water, it just showed me like sort of divine timing. And I'm now feeling that's quite related to what you were saying about being prepared. It's like you don't need to grasp for it.
Yes.
But if you're willing to wait, everything is not wait necessarily, but just willing to be, everything is there when you need it.
Yes. That's
you can't put these things in your calendar necessarily. You can't be like, oh, at this time it's gonna happen. But if you kind of are in the flow of like creating those spaces to receive, it's beautiful what can come through. And people are generally better at giving than they are receiving.
Yes, truly. You know what I got too from the apple when you were saying it? And one good apple on the ground has completely went through its full process. It's at its sweetest point.
Yeah.
It was like, I never thought of that before.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful. So
it's like it's like the tree, Mother Nature knows when it's perfect, and whether it's the wind that knocks it down or like it just falls, and then you still got the other one that will be in the tree.
Yes.
That you would have picked if you wanted an apple. I wasn't actually looking for apples, but I didn't know they were there, and I could have picked a few more, but I just got 3 nice ones off the floor.
Beautiful.
And it's just so satisfying to harvest from nature.
Yes, you feel your abundance. I feel
so
$1 billion of my land gives me back.
Yeah.
There is so much abundance all around me.
And these roses, like these rose hips. And then last year I bought some rose hip tea from a little farm in London, and these rose hips were everywhere. I was like, I'm just going to pick a few of those. So I'm going to dry those out and make the tea. And it's like you said, when I don't think I necessarily need rosehip tea, but I'll enjoy it. And there's something about connecting to that abundance of nature. It feeds into your own life. And it's just, there's the second time I've done that walk now, and the last time I got some it was very funny actually. I got some elderberries and a few apples, and then when I was walking back, I hadn't smoked cannabis for a while, and I was thinking, I really feel like cannabis. And I was almost home, and I looked in the ditch, and there were these plants, like old cannabis plants that someone had obviously come to the end of harvest, and they're throwing them out. So all the buds were taken off, but it was it'd just been really sunny, so there was a few like little scraps on the leaves, and it was enough for me to roll something tasty up, and I was just like, oh, that's so pretty. Just in the ditch. So it was long. I wish there were some seeds actually, because it would have made a nice sort of strain called ditchweed. But it was one of the best smokes I've ever had. So it just
Oh,
shows you there's something about like it definitely wasn't the best, it wasn't like
yeah.
the cream of the crop, but because it just came so freely and at that time it was beautiful.
Haven't you been, I know you're aware of this, how things are just, when you allow yourself to be in the flow, things just pop up
Mm,
always out of
mm,
they just,
yeah,
you're like, you wouldn't even expect it. You wouldn't even expect it. Okay, I got to share an experience.
yeah, please.
So, because I have a truck and I have a huge amount of money coming to me, I was thinking maybe I should get me a car because it's cheaper on gas. So I asked the universe, okay, if a car can afford, let it go. Never thought nothing else about it. Whatever, I'll drive my truck forever. I love it. And so my daughter calls me yesterday and she goes, Mom, I couldn't believe it. She calls me and she goes, Mom, I just bought a new car. And I'm a little bit upside down because she's a nurse, traveling nurse. And so the mileage is turn the car upside down. She goes, would you mind just taking over payments? And this is how much I owe. I was like, yeah. And it's so reasonable. And what she owes on it is so, and so, yeah. So today I'm getting a car. And,
Sweet.
and, but
What color?
it's white and it's so black. It's so funny because my truck is black and my car now is going to be white. So they're like, yeah,
Interesting.
I love that. And my truck, I've always called it the Black Stallion. As soon as I met it, I knew it was my Black Stallion in my life. And our vehicles and our homes are part of us. So,
Yeah.
um, uh, but I mean, that's a big example. But I mean, little things are showing up.
Mm.
Things are showing up.
I was
Like,
looking for a mirror for this house that we've just moved into. And my mom rang up the other day and she's like, you still looking for a mirror? I just found one on the street. And I was like, yeah, okay, a mirror would have probably cost me like, I could have probably got one for a tenner or something. But it's like, oh, it's so nice when they come to you that way.
yeah,
And I also there's another funny thing. Buying a couple of things at the auction because we just moved house. And I got these old, do you know Boo? Like that game, like when you throw, there's a French game called Boo, and then there's like, I think in the UK they call it like bowls. And I was like, oh, it'd be fun to have some of those old balls. And then I bought them, and Bruno was like, did you realize that they had your initials on, ET? And it's like, oh, what are the chances of that? But it was just like, oh,
true.
yeah, like, pretty good.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like it's gearing up to manifest something a little bit bigger. Um,
And that's what we're doing. It's like we're like having these little ideas, then you just let them go, and then they just show up.
yeah,
It's so
exactly. It's the
cool.
letting go that is so important.
Yeah.
I'd almost forgotten about finding a mirror. Um, and yeah, there was another thing. Like we moved here, and in the field behind us, this huge pile of like rubble, and I mean huge. And and I think they kind of like something happened with the previous people on the farm. They like tore up a road, and they're very happy about it. But it has all these bricks in, like these old bricks, and like, so the perspective there is amazing because for one, obviously the people who were there before, it was like an eyesore and useless. But I've just been using all these bricks to make paths around this little vegetable garden, and it's just like the more I'm looking at that rubble, I'm just like, oh, that's like a gift from God. Like absolutely, like I wouldn't have been able to do this without all those bricks. I would have done something else for sure, but this is like, it's really smart. Like now all the bricks are coming in, and for like next season, it's gonna be like superb. Um, so yeah, exactly. Just those little things, and I know we're not just having a chat here, but it will probably go out. So I think that's just such a wonderful thing to share for other people. Just tap into
Yeah.
those little things, and also it's seeing, you gotta feel them. And I think even like sharing now, it's like sort of sharing the gratitude of that. It then brings more in.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't have to be a little thing. It can be like, oh, you just find yeah, a good recipe or something, or some reduced tomatoes in the supermarket or whatever it is. It's just when you're trying to make some tomato jam, or yeah, it's hilarious. So it feels really good. I think there's a lot of that energy coming in, and there are a lot of people around the planet now who are sort of feeding into that, and it's growing and it's growing, and we're doing it on a sort of cellular individual level, but it's like just getting us in the flow so then we can manifest these like larger things, like peace on earth and like, you know, end of poverty and all these things that for so long have seemed like almost impossible ideas, because they are impossible on a like an individual level of one body. But actually, if we can get the flow of manifesting these little things and seeing the abundance on an individual scale, we're going to bring these great big dreams together, which is pretty awesome. And yeah, cheers to that.
And that's what I feel like. This complete year is of celebration. I just feel so much celebration, even in those times when, you know, you're going through it. After you get out of it, it's like, wow, wow. Because once you start realizing that you can move out of a, you know, chaos, whatever's going on in your body, it's like, I'm very proud of me.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. Yeah.
And don't do that, please. My son entered the room. Say hello.
Who is that?
Edward.
Who's
so
Edward?
and everybody else on
Where does
here.
this man live?
He lives in London. Okay, say hi, because I'm recording.
On YouTube?
Yeah.
Oh, I probably shouldn't be here, huh?
It's all perfect. Okay, baby. Thank you.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Homeschooling. That too is a big challenge.
Yeah.
Especially these kids, I'm really seeing the, even with all my grandchildren, the emotionals that they're going through. It's hard to be home all the time. It's truly hard. And I know.
Especially because the way that we haven't really got the community living that would make, you know,
Yes.
It's almost, and I feel like it's showing us something that we should have more community living. It's not necessarily like, it should just be schooling, and it should probably be in your community. And I feel like that's what's happening, is we're harmonizing with to gravitate into the communities where you are happy for your kids to be around, and you don't have to be like you know, keeping an eye on them the whole time, because you also know that there are, you know, 100 other people in your area who will be keeping an eye on them.
Really?
And I've actually been thinking about that a lot as well, and actually have it like on a quite deep level for some time, and how actually take the buffalo for example, how the buffalo, you know, all the kids are always in the middle, and then they can have their sort of their, you know, they have their space in the middle of the herd. And I was thinking like, well, how do we redesign our communities and our societies so that happens? And I had this conversation with a recent new connection, and we were talking about paths. I'll bring it back round, but it's like, we have all these, I'm in the middle of farmland, and we have all these like huge open fields, and how are we going to sort of redesign them? Then I love this idea of like food forest and agroforestry. And then you're like, well, we need to design our living spaces in that as well, because we need to reconnect. Well, we have this great opportunity to reconnect with the land, and you can't reconnect with the land when you're commuting in back into the city the whole time. And this idea of sort of building like forests with clearings in the middle, and then maybe like lower trees and then higher trees, and you can almost have these sort of it's like a nest in the middle where you sort of put all the waste, and then paths connecting these different nests throughout these new like agroforests we're building. And it's pretty much what the indigenous communities have done for years and years. And building on mountains as well makes so much sense, because then you've actually got the natural circle, and you can have the older and the younger people above. You can have then, you know, it's just such a, nature provides the perfect templates for like security, and I'm really excited to explore that more. I can go on about that all day, but
I feel
Yeah,
too.
it's showing us a lot, this basically, on
Yeah.
how we can, what we need to redesign.
Yes, and I love it too because it is bringing everybody back into communion. Because
Mm.
everybody would come home, spread through the day, come back together, but not really being together. And it was just now they're
Yeah.
bringing us all back into community. And so the kids, I think, and as adults too, they're so structured on, they want to be fed constantly. And what I mean is that they want structure. And when you
Mm.
start moving that structure, it's very hard for the children. Uh,
Mm.
so yeah, we're working out the kinks on that, especially with me and my son. We're working out those kinks, and he wants to see his friends, and a lot of his friends' parents won't. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of things that, yeah,
It all comes down to spaces. That's what it keeps on coming back to me. It's like, it's not that like necessarily things are right or wrong, but it's like you want to allocate the spaces for it. So if you've got a group of, say, older people in the community who want to get to bed a bit earlier or want a bit more quietness, then there has to be the space for that to happen. And if you want someone, that's quite, that sort of aligns with where people might want to retreat. And you don't necessarily, if you're going to a retreat or something, you don't want to necessarily be sitting next to someone who's on their phone or on their computer the whole time. It doesn't mean the computer is wrong. It just means maybe it's out of alignment with that space. And then you can look at the other things. It's like, well, we should have spaces for I mean, it's that's really fascinating to me. And it's like where it really comes into is how we focus on what spaces we sort of require and at what moments we require them, because it doesn't necessarily have to mean that space is for that the whole time, but how we sort of harmonize, like, okay, well, this is a space for say growing food, but maybe after the harvest when nothing's growing there, it's a great place for a massive party.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and it can be in the middle of nowhere, and there can be like a rave, and it's like, that's great. Young people can come together and really have an awesome time, and then it's just connecting the spaces. So yeah, I think it's something where, as a community, like a global community, we should put a lot of attention on, like, really feeling into what we require spaces for. Like, okay, if kids are gonna be educated closer to home, what are we gonna create those spaces? And that's not necessary for the whole time. Then what can those spaces be used for in the holidays? And yeah, and what do we really want? What do we want?
Celebration.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. And it's so beautiful because it's bringing the whole family back together.
Mm.
Because everybody, like, I've been really participating in my grandchildren because my kids are getting stressed out. So, and I had read a thing about the elders who used to raise their grandchildren. I completely resonate with that because you're not
Yeah.
so stressed out as a grandparent. The role is different.
I think I saw that on your Facebook, and it made sense to me as well. And I remember a friend of mine who's from Georgia, and she said that's quite normal in Georgia. Like, the grandparents often raise the children. Again, not necessarily for everyone. I feel like pretty good, but it does make sense that and your post, didn't it, said that they're the closest to sort of the other side of the veil, so they have information to share with the people who are closest towards the end of their
I chills
life.
all over my
Yeah.
arms.
It does make sense.
Yeah.
And it brings a peace to the circle of life, whereas we sort of put like death in a corner, and it's like, and it's this fear then it becomes. But actually it's like, well, if this human soul, that's, then kids just have, babies especially, have this joy and this natural beautiful energy about them because they haven't been really conditioned to lose it. It's like, well, if they came from that place where I'm going, suddenly the fear sort of just evaporates. It's like doesn't seem like they're just coming out of some traumatic experience. It seems like they're in a really good place. So maybe I'm going to a good place as well. rather than, you know, some fiery fire pit. And
Beautiful.
yeah. Vicky, I'm actually going to get ready for our seed council meeting, so
Got it. You
might have to wind it up a little bit. But I
Thank
really enjoyed that conversation.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Edward, for your beautiful
Thank you.
love. And we'll get together soon. Let me end this. Hello. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.